Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. Grant Undead here, and it's November, which means my October horror movie watch list is finally over. If you've been keeping up with my shorts, you've seen my 1 minute or so reviews on each horror movie I watched this October, and there was a lot of diverse picks. I had a lot of fun making this list. Now, I haven't done a full video on any of these films, which is kind of what I'm going to be doing today. I have this tier list set up where I'm going to be ranking all the films that I watched. Now, in the future, I'd love to get more in depth with my reviews, maybe posting full reviews for each film I watch, doing weekly watch lists, things like that. But for now, I'm just going to recap the films I watched this October, give you guys a little bit more insight into what I thought of each film. And yeah, you're going to see how they rank up. Now, if you've seen any of these films and you have any favorites, if you disagree with my rankings, please feel free to shout out in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback or your own reviews of these films. How many of these did you see? All of these I haven't seen before this year, so I was really excited to dive in and watch them. So yeah, let's just jump into the ranking, guys. We're going to start and go down the line from October 1st all the way to October 31st. Keep it chronological. I think that's a good way to go about it. So starting off here, we have the ABCs of Death. Was my first film I watched this year. Now, this was kind of a unique anthology where each sequence within the film was about a few minutes in length and it tackled a different letter of the alphabet. And it was made by a different director. Each director had to choose a word based off the letter they were given and relate it to the topic of death. I thought that was a great way to go about a film like this, and it was very interesting. I thought it was a good way to start off my Halloween watch list. Overall, the films were, they were really hit or miss. Not a whole lot of them were special or intriguing in any sort of profound way. It was more of a laid back kind of watch. So honestly, with this first film, The ABCs of Death, I have to put it in the bottom tier. Now, I guess I should probably go into depth of just briefly overview the tiers. So at the bottom here, where I'm putting this film, I have Trick or Treat, which means I didn't really think it was anything too special. I'm sure there's people out here that are going to love it. It just wasn't necessarily for me. So this is kind of my hit or miss category. Now above it we have Cozy Watch. These are more of laid back vibes. You don't have to be particularly engaged. I specifically wasn't enthralled in any way. It wasn't my favorite films. They're not terrible films. I should say that I didn't hate any films on this list. They were all pretty decent watches. So with that out of the way, the Cozy Watch is more the laid back category. Popcorn flick, middle of the road. This is where they start to get a little more interesting, where you can sit back, fire up some popcorn, and you should have a good time watching these. Now the next two, Scary Good and Masterpiece. These are films that I absolutely loved watching. Scary Good, they're way above the middle. I would highly recommend these. And Masterpiece, self-explanatory. These films are top tier, leagues above the rest. I fell in love with these films. So that's how I'm going to be ranking these. ABCs of Death, it was a decent start, but I had to put it down at the bottom in the Trick or Treat category. Next we have The Monster Squad, which is an older film from 1987. And this is kind of a goofy teenage, not really teenage, they're teenage/kid film where all these neighborhood kids had to band together to take down Dracula and his band of monsters. And it was honestly a super good watch. A lot of these older films, they were a bit cozier, more campfirey, and I absolutely dug the vibe of this one. The Monster Squad was such a good watch. I'm going to put that one in the Scary Good category. I would recommend that one for sure. And then next up, we have the first film from the list from this year, which is The Watchers. And this one I was really, really excited for. The trailers all look super good. And basically this girl is out with she's delivering a bird of all things, and she gets lost in the woods, finds this cabin where she and some other survivors are forced to hide out and just be this kind of like makeshift show for these monsters lurking in the woods that just come up and watch them, as the title suggests. And it was pretty interesting premise. From what I saw, a lot of people online weren't too taken with this film. I would say I did enjoy it a pretty good amount. It wasn't anything too over the top or amazing, anything like that. It was It was a pretty solid watch, I would say. So the watchers I'm putting in the popcorn flick category, right in the middle. I would recommend it. It is a good film. Uh, Moving on from there, we have Dark Harvest. This film, it took a while for me to get into. I wasn't really enjoying it at first, but once it started popping off, it was awesome. The design for the monster in this film was super good. It was pretty engaging, and the kills were, they got pretty intense. So I was honestly genuinely surprised by this film. It did slightly better than I thought it was going to. It had a pretty strong B-movie feel, but then as the plot started thickening and the action started ramping up, it turned out to be a pretty awesome watch. I will say I'm I'm torn between putting it in Scary Good and Popcorn Flick. I will say it's kind of more middle of the road, so I am gonna put it ahead of the Watchers, but in the Popcorn Flick category. Just gotta flip them around there. There we go. Okay, so let's move on from there. Again, I'm trying to go as fast as I can while still giving you guys some pretty good details on these. So next I watched Black Swan. Now I know there's a lot of hype surrounding this film, and I was pretty interested in checking this one out. And yeah, I wasn't disappointed at all. Natalie Portman, Mila Kunis goes without saying. This is more of a psychological mess with your head type film where the ending was just really impactful and the way it built to it was really awesome. This is a film that honestly I've taken film classes before, and this is one that should honestly be in a lot of film classes. So the direction was awesome. The acting was great. The story was pretty engaging. I won't say it did special things, but it didn't do anything insane to earn it masterpiece. I know a lot of people say it is. Me personally, I will put it slightly below. I'm going to put it right at the edge. It's going to be in Scary Good, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be at the top, the absolute top. So if this was graded, it would be a very strong A. On the brink of an A+, but not quite there for me personally. I do highly recommend. Moving on from there, though, this is going to be my first masterpiece. The Others with Nicole Kidman. This was insane. It's got the perfect gothic vibes. A lot of creepy ghost stuff in the background. I absolutely loved it. It's from 2001. And so this one it's been on my list for a while, and it needed to be on my October list, and I'm so glad I put it there because this is one I'm definitely going to rewatch in the future. Again, the vibes were just perfect. The acting was amazing. And the twist is something that's kind of used to by now, but for the time, especially, I think it was a pretty solid one. And for just seeing it this year, I'm disappointed I waited this long. But The Others is a super good film. It's earning a masterpiece for me. You guys definitely need to check this one out. And now we're going back down in age. We got another older film, and this is Reanimator based on H.P. Lovecraft. This one does show its age a little bit, but it held up, honestly. I enjoyed it. I wasn't bored entirely watching it. It was slow at times, and the acting, it's nothing special by today's standards, but I mean, who doesn't love a good zombie-esque film? That's personally my favorite, honestly. Reanimator, yeah, it does show its age, but it was honestly a really good watch. I am going to put it in popcorn flicks. It's going to go behind those other two in there, though, the more recent ones. Just personally, my taste. It was definitely a good watch, though. Alright, and then, yeah, another old one. We got The Fog. John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. I tried to watch as much of him as possible this year. The Thing, I just actually got the 4K version of that film. It looks amazing, honestly. And then I also watched They Live recently this year. So yeah, I'm trying to catch up on my Carpenter. What else did I watch? I watched The Ward. That's one of his newer ones, new-ish ones. But yeah, The Fog, it was really good. The suspense was built tremendously. The acting was really good as well. I do wish it was a bit longer. I feel like there wasn't enough time for it to fully envelop, but it was a really good watch. I am going to put it's going to go in the popcorn. I think this is where the majority of them are going to go. I'm going to squeeze it between Dark Harvest and The Watchers. I feel like that's a good place for it. It's a really good classic film. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely check it out. Okay, next up we got Darkness Falls. This one, early 2000s. It had an interesting premise. I try to look for those special horror films, and this one is a monster tooth fairy bent on just murdering children, and yeah, pretty much everyone it doesn't like. Uh, Super good premise. It caught my interest. I had to pick it up. Slightly disappointing in some ways. I thought the design for the Tooth Fairy wasn't anything special. It didn't really grip me. I wanted something that was terrifying and that, would make me never want to lose a tooth again. But I don't know. It was different. There was a lot of action. It got really intense at some scenes. Like the Tooth Fairy, it wasn't scary in its design, but it was just relentless. And yeah, when it came after you, it literally would not stop. So there's literally like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of nonstop the characters running and this thing was hunting them down. And it was quite scary when it needed to be, but I don't know. I feel like it could have been a lot better. So Darkness Falls is gonna be my first one to fall into the cozy watch category. Yeah. So it wasn't terrible by any means. I know it gets a lot of hate online, but with the action and the terror it seemed to inject, I think it was pretty cozy. You check this one out if you can, but a lot of people didn't like it. But it's not as bad as people say in my opinion. All right, I'll move on from that one. This one was tough for me. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. It's a lot different because, it takes the exorcism and possession stories and it tries to do something different. This one bounces back and forth between the actual possession and the attempted exorcism of this girl named Emily. This is based on a true story, by the way. I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah. So it bounces between the possession and the court case where they're trying the priest because the girl actually dies during the exorcism. So that was pretty interesting. It's something that I thought was very unique and worth watching. Personally, it didn't really hit, and that seems to be the take. People either really love it or think it falls short, and I personally fall on the latter. I may give this one another chance because it was pretty interesting with the conversations and the story and how it progressed, but it was scary when it needed to be, but most of the time it was kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. So I am gonna have to put that one in Trick or Treat. Yeah, right there above the ABCs of Death for now. So that's how I felt about that one. Maybe you have a different opinion, but that's how I felt about it. Okay, so moving on now, we got another film from this year, and that's Imaginary. This one looked interesting to me with all the trailers, and it was easy to write off as another possessed teddy bear film. Like, we need another one of those, but it was pretty interesting. It went in a bunch of different directions that I wasn't expecting. So for that, I will give it some credit. It wasn't anything extraordinary, anything like that, but it was a pretty decent watch. So Imaginary, I am going to put in popcorn. Let's see, where am I going to put it? I think it's slightly above Reanimator, below The Watchers. That's where I'm going to put it for now. Moving on, and we've got, honestly, some pretty awesome films coming up. These were some of my favorites. Southbound. Now, this was on Amazon Prime, and the reason I discovered it is because it's produced by the same people who made VHS, and VHS is an awesome series. I love the whole anthology vibes when they do it right. With Southbound, I have to say, I was so blown away. This, honestly, I'm gonna say it, confirmed, this was my favorite film on my watch list. So you already know it's going in the masterpiece. Each segment in this film was so perfectly done and they connected in ways that just flowed awesome. Even though there was like 5 different tales, it felt like you were watching the same film because they just bled into each other so well. So I can't gush enough about this film. I'm going to try to contain myself, but I might do a full video on this honestly because it was so well done. Really well done masterpiece. And similarly, let's just keep it going. 31, my first ever Rob Zombie film. And again, I was blown away. The direction was so good, the characters were engaging, and honestly, the way I can relate to it is it felt like the video game Outlast, if you played that, one of the scariest games ever, the first horror game I ever played. It was like if Outlast was a movie. Now, I know they actually did just announce that, but yeah, 31 by Rob Zombie was insane. I thought it was really well done. The villains were really engaging. They're all psychotic in their own way, and I loved it. So 31 is earning another masterpiece. Oop, wrong plot. In the middle, there we go. I liked it a little better than the others, but Southbound is going to be my favorite. So that's how that's going to rank up. Alright, and now we got stop motion, which, another one. Let's just say, I was surprised by it. This one isn't a masterpiece, but it was really, really good. I love the whole stop motion aesthetic. This is another psychological one, but it does have some scary moments, and the acting was really good. The story was paced pretty nicely, and I just loved it. This one I'm probably going to rewatch at some point because it was pretty engaging. Stop motion is earning a scary good. Am I gonna? Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it beneath these two, but it was honestly a super good watch. Alright, and then another film from this year. This is gonna be just about hit the halfway mark. This is day 15. I watched Late Night with the Devil, and this one was probably one of my most anticipated films of the year. And yeah, if you've seen this film, you know how good it is. I'm not sure if there are people out there who don't dislike it. If you do dislike it, let me know what you didn't like. But I thought this was another one with really strong pacing. The character development was amazing. There's some twists thrown in there that are pretty solid. Overall, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. This was a really well done film. So Late Night with the Devil, yeah, this is the only film from this year to earn a masterpiece. It's up there. It's one of the greatest films I've seen in a while. So couldn't put it at the bottom of masterpiece, but there we go. If you have seen this one, let me know what you think about it. Moving on from there, we've got a bit of a dated one, Outcast. I think it was 2010, and this is definitely a B movie. The acting was okay. The story was decent. This one I was drawn in by the premise. I wasn't sure how it was gonna look. I know there's not a whole lot of people talking about it, but I did think the chemistry between the main male character and the female love interest was pretty strong. They had a good dynamic there, and this one had a good blend of witchcraft and werewolfy, monster, whatever you want to call it. It was a pretty decent watch for being a B movie. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are turned off by that, but a lot of people are going to think this is a pretty solid hidden gem. I thought this was a pretty decent watch. Again, I didn't hate any of these films. This one, I don't know if I'll ever watch again, but it was worth checking out, I'd say. So this one, for being what it is, I'm going to put it in Trick or Treat, right in the middle there. So it was better than I was expecting, and yeah, it was decent. So I'll put it right there. Moving on, we've got some films that I'll try to go through quickly that are kind of run of the mill. I don't know what to call it, but I think I'll put them in different categories actually, but they just kind of blend together. The Invisible Man. This one, it got kind of goofy. The acting was super good. This one was a tough one to place because the acting was pretty good. The premise was interesting. It took on a whole different sci-fi vibe that I wasn't expecting. But there's just a part where there's like a massacre and the invisible villain is just like going ape mode and just gunning everybody down, and it got a bit over the top. So this one went in some pretty weird directions, but the acting and everything was super good. I am gonna put this one as a cozy watch. Yeah, I'll put it right there. Actually, I don't know. I think I'll put it behind Darkness Falls. It just wasn't fully my style, but I think there's a lot of people that would love this. So this was definitely one for me that was more of a sit back and enjoy. That's what I got from it. Now let's move on to The Black Phone. I love Ethan Hawke. He's a super good actor. I was really interested in seeing this film when it came out, and I didn't get around to it. And I have to say, this one was, on some levels, pretty disappointing. The start was pretty good. The kids that were acting in it, they did a great job. Like, very believable. I could tell that they were really putting themselves into this film. But the way the story went, it just wasn't particularly engaging. I wasn't too taken by it. So maybe you'll love it, maybe you won't. I'm going to put The Black Phone in the Trick or Treat category. And then moving on from there, we got Thanksgiving, made by Eli Roth. This one I was pretty interested in seeing. I don't really think there's another Thanksgiving horror film out there. So just the uniqueness on its own. Same with Darkness Falls. That's what drew me in. I will say like the first third of the film, I didn't like it pretty much at all. I wasn't a fan of the characters. I wasn't too thrown into the story. The opening sequence with the Black Friday the year before, it just, I don't know, that one was a little unnecessary to me, a bit too over the top, if you want to call it that. But as a whole, the more the film went on, I did end up enjoying it. The kills were pretty creative, and yeah, the direction was pretty good. So towards the end, I was more sold on the film than I was at the start. I do still have to put Thanksgiving in a cozy watch, but I'm going to put it at the top of that tier for now. Yeah. So then moving on from there, we got Winchester, which is another based on a true story, based on the Winchester Mystery House in California. Definitely read up on that. It's one of my favorite paranormal real life situations to go on. So basically, in this one, we have a doctor who's sent to check out Lady Winchester, who's the heir of the Winchester rifle empire, whatever you want to call it. So she builds this crazy mansion to hide from the spirits of those killed by her family's rifles that are coming to curse her and ruin her life, basically. And it's really interesting. I love the whole story. The acting was really well done. There was a lot of cheap jump scares in it, which I am not a fan of, but the story itself was enough to keep me engaged and not wanting to hide from the screen. So Winchester was a really good watch. I'm going to put this one in the middle, popcorn flick. I think I'll put it, yeah, between The Watchers and Imaginary. So that's where that one goes. Alright, so we're running towards the last third of the list or so, so I'll try to go through these quick so it's not a super long video. So let's go here. The Ritual. This one was hyped up to me so much by friends. And yeah, this one was awesome. I loved it. As a monster film, as a, whatever you want to call it, psychological, grief-driven character. The character arcs in this was crazy. I was really engaged with this film. The monster design was super cool. The review at the end. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff great going for this one. The Ritual is definitely scary good. I'm going to put it, I think I'll put it down at the bottom. I don't know how I feel. Maybe I'll switch things around at the end, but I'm just kind of going off my notes on my initial impressions. So moving on from there, we got The Orphanage, Guillermo del Toro. This is the only Spanish film on the list. I do love del Toro. I definitely need to check out more of his stuff. Pan's Labyrinth was amazing, so I was eager to check out another one. The Orphanage was a pretty solid watch, a pretty cool ghost story. I will say it went in some directions that I wasn't expecting. Maybe not in the best way, but not in the worst way either. This was definitely a run-of-the-mill, pretty solid watch. Del Toro always has good stuff, I will say. So this one, I think I'm going to put it, yeah, I think I'm going to put it in the cozy watch. Definitely more laid back. I may have to check this one out again, because towards the end it got pretty insane with the twist they were trying to throw in there. So yeah, I'll put that one where it is now in cozy watch. And moving on from there, we got my only fully animated film as well. And honestly, I might get some hate for waiting this long to see Corpse Bride. But yeah, this is a lot of people's childhoods, but I haven't watched it till now. And I'm glad I finally watched it. For a kid's film, not really scary horror. This is definitely more of a Halloween vibe though, so you know, not they can't all be scary. I try to be diverse. But Corpse Bride was really good. The story was awesome. For me watching it in my mid-20s, finally watching this kid's movie, I wasn't turned away. I thought it was really good. So this one's definitely earning a scary good, even though it's not scary. So I think I'll put it behind The Ritual, but yeah, definitely a good watch. I'm glad I finally watched this one. Now, the next few films are from recent years. We got In a Violent Nature. This one I was really intrigued by, because it's, you know, a slasher film told from the perspective of the slasher. So you get to follow him around chasing all these stupid teenagers instead of following the teenagers, and then all of a sudden the killer shows up. You get to follow the killer. The way they show his backstory in different ways is pretty cool. There are some twisted, sick kills in this film that were really awesome to see. As a whole, though, towards the end it really started to drag, and there is some things that I think could have done a lot better. I definitely think we need to see more of this type of film. But for a standalone, I think they might be planning a sequel, but as it stands right now, this was definitely a decent watch. Could have been a lot better in different ways, but I'm going to put this one in the cozy watch towards the end there. I may have to give this one another watch, as I've said with many films on this list, but yeah, that's where I'm going to put it for now. And then we got Longlegs. Now, this one is definitely the most hyped up film of the year, and I was going to write this one off as a Silence of the Lambs clone, but it does its own thing in a bunch of different ways, and I love the art direction. It's got Nick Cage, of course. He's not in it a whole lot, but his acting is is wicked for the character he's playing. And overall, the acting is really well done. There's a lot of hidden images. If you're really paying attention, you'll pick up on a lot of them. This one tries to get you engaged in as many ways as possible. And I think this one's worthy of a rewatch. This is a one where you have to watch it a few different times to kind of get it fully, even though it does explain itself pretty well at the end. Yeah, this film was worth the hype, I'd say. Definitely not one of the best films of the year, but just for the art direction alone, this one was really good. So I will have to put this one, let's see, definitely Scary Good. I think I'm going to slide it in there. I did enjoy this one a lot. Okay, let's kind of wrap up here. We just got the last 6 films or so. Possum, this one is unique. Uh, the puppet creature thing is crazy. It's scary. It's not in there a whole lot, but when it's there, it's used to the full extent, and it does a really good job of it. It's carried by just 2 actors, so a lot of people might get turned off, might think it's boring, but honestly, it's very artistic. This is another film that I believe could be studied in film class just based on its acting, its direction, whatever you want to say. I'm just kind of just rambling, trying to fill in the void, but Possum, I need to check out again because it's just so creepy and on another level, even though it is kind of boring at times. It is a slow burn, but this one is honestly, it's good. I like Possum. I'm going to put it in the cozy watch category, though. I'm going to put it right there. Moving on, okay. We need to talk about Oculus for a little bit because Mike Flanagan is amazing. If you've seen any of his shows on Netflix, you already know. I did check out one of his earlier films this year, Absentia, and that's definitely a B movie. So Oculus is such a step up. This film, I was blown away. I couldn't tear my eyes off the screen. Flanagan's direction is just on another level. He's a modern horror master. So if you haven't checked out any of his stuff, I would recommend Oculus as a good starting point, or any of his shows on Netflix. But this film was so good. Karen Gillan and the other actors, they sold it completely. And yeah, this film is just insane. This is going to earn my final masterpiece slot. Yeah, this was insane. I loved it. Okay, moving on from there, just got the last few films. Session 9 was on my radar for a while. This was an earlier 2000s psychological ghost story, if you want to call it that. I like that it's actually filmed in an actual asylum, so that it has that going for it. As a whole, the twist towards the end, it got pretty crazy. I will say I was more engaged at the beginning of the film, though. It did start to build up tension, but then I don't know, it just fell off for me a little bit. But this one, I think it was more hyped up for me than for its own good, you know? But as a whole, it was a good, decent watch. You can sit back and enjoy the spooky vibes just knowing, this was filmed on site in an actual asylum. And all the crazy stuff that happens in the film, it just heightens it to another level. But I don't think it was anything too extraordinary. I'm going to put Session 9 in a cozy watch. What do I put? I think I'm going to put it right there beneath Possum a little bit. Alright, now we got the Disappointments Room. And this one, it took me a bit to, it was like, what is this film trying to be? Because it definitely had the spooky vibes, and then it bounced more towards the psychological. This film had a good way of making you question if the characters were actually going through what they were going through. So the acting was pretty well done. And what else do I have to say about it? I don't know. it seemed more run-of-the-mill. It didn't do anything extraordinary. I did think the acting was the acting was above average, I will say, but the story itself wasn't anything new or unique. So I'm gonna put this one in a definite cozy watch. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Yeah, let's just finish the last two up. We got The Return. This one stars Sarah Michelle Gellar, and this one is definitely more of a laid back, run of the mill, nothing special. To me at least. Maybe you'll love it. That's why I'm going to put it in Trick or Treat. Because this film, I don't know, I wasn't too particularly engaged, but it did some cool things setting up the story, and it felt more like a drama at times than a horror, which, you gotta have a good balance, but for me, I was expecting it to be something else than it was. I still think it was an okay watch, so I'm gonna put it there in the Trick or Treat category. And okay, let's finish with the last film. So I always end on October 31st with the classic, and I finally checked out Night of the Living Dead. I mentioned before the zombies are my absolute favorite thing in the entire world, and they really are. So seeing this classic, origin of zombies, it was awesome. I did watch one of the color versions on Amazon Prime. I did pick up a DVD as well, but since it was on Prime, I just watched it. And the acting was pretty solid for the times. The story had some good tropes. I could see The Walking Dead drew a lot of inspiration from this, obviously. But yeah, for being a film as old as it was still really engaging and it held up, especially with being remastered in color and all those things. Definitely worth checking out. I'm glad I finally watched this. Night of the Living Dead is earning scary good. I'm gonna put it right there between The Ritual and Longlegs. Yeah, so there we go, guys. Here are my horror films for Halloween 2024, all mapped out and ranked for you guys. Now, again, if you have seen any of these films and you want to share your opinions, please, please do so. I'd love to hear what you guys think. These are the films I watched this year, and I enjoyed all of them to varying degrees. Now, feel free to go over the rankings again and comment on what you think. Share films you think I should watch next year, because I am definitely going to do this again. And there is a lot of horror movies out there, so I'm going to check out as many as I can in the off season as well. So look forward to more reviews, probably more independent reviews where I'll just review new films that I see, and I'll probably do weekly watch lists and things like that. So in any genre, not just horror, but horror is my favorite, as you can tell. So anyways, guys, I'll stop rambling. If you stuck around through the whole video, honestly, thank you. I didn't put a whole lot of effort to it. I just threw it together, but it means a lot that you guys are checking out my content. So yeah, stick around. Stay tuned for more, guys. Thanks again for checking this out. And as always, guys, until the next video, see ya.